Hey kids, this is Ivan. How you doing? I don't know about you, but I like political science and philosophy. And one of the things that you find out when you study those subjects, you read about them, you talk about them, whatever it happens to be, you realize there are no easy answers. Sure, you may come to some conclusions at some point, but there's always something. As my friend Michael Lionetti likes to say in another context, there's always a however. And so there's always a however. There are gray areas, and there's gray areas in the rest of life. And role-playing games are no exception. So this morning, as I was getting up and stumbling around and trying to get ready for work, doing my usual morning routine, drinking some coffee, making myself a travel mug of tea to go to work with, etc., this enigmatic thought kind of entered my brain for whatever reason, and so I kind of toyed around with this little conundrum during my morning routine and then in my drive to work. And as I thought about it a little bit more, and I figured I'd make a little video. And part of the reason I want to do this is I want to solicit your opinion, your experience, because there's no easy answer, at least for me. Perhaps there's an easy answer for you. Perhaps you've had some experience with this, or perhaps you've thought about it, or maybe you've never thought about this at all. So, here we go. Now, in the past, I've talked about degrees of success or failure in games, and many games have that built right in. And generally what happens is there's some kind of threshold number of successes, however, whatever the mechanic works. And the more and more successes, or the greater the number you have in excess of whatever that threshold number was, the greater your degree of success. And likewise, should you fail, well, the worse you failed, in terms of like perhaps you had no successes, then you failed really badly. Other games don't have a degree of success or failure built in at all, especially some of the games that I grew up playing. And I made a video about it. Maybe I'll link it below, maybe I won't. But it's really easy to insert a degree of failure into a game like that, like say an OSR game, Lamentations of the Flame Princess, whatever. You do some kind of conflict resolution mechanic, and you just roll another d6. And then the higher the number you roll in that d6, well, the greater the degree of success or failure, depending on whether you succeed or fail. Pretty easy to do something like that. So, hold that in your head for a second, because recently I've also been talking about narration and the idea that there are differences in the approach rather to who narrates what in terms of success or failure. And let's just assume this kind of default, where people seem to be kind of I guess there is some sort of consensus for the most part that the player narrates their successes, and the game master, on the other hand, narrates the failures. And the game master will also maintain some kind of editorial privilege. So should the player, go over the top in terms of narrating the success, the game master can kind of reel them back in and edit things a little bit. So we've got that, right? Let's go back to our degree of success or failure, because this is where it becomes interesting. You got a game like, say, Ubiquity. I've got my copy of Leagues of Adventure, one of the better core books for Ubiquity, and they show degrees of success or failure. And so, should you score right on the nose for how many successes you need, that's a minor success rather. If you get 1 in excess of that, simple success; 2, complete success; 3, major success; 4, exceptional success; 5 or more, amazing success. Likewise, you're going to go to simple, complete, pitiful, dreadful, and abysmal failures. The less you have, less number of successes you have, closer to like whatever that threshold number was. There's other games that do it a little bit differently, and this is the mechanic I want to talk about a little bit, because this is where it starts to get a little interesting. The Ubiquity method also kind of has this happen. However, it's much more obvious and poignant in this mechanic. And there's a mechanic out there that people use, and I'm not really sure what the real name of it is, but a lot of times they call it something like the yes and or no but mechanic. So let's go with this hypothetical situation. We've got a game, whatever it is, and there's task resolution mechanic, which is very, very simple. It uses a d6 die. Here we go. Here's our die we're going to use. And the threshold for success with whatever you're trying to do is 4. So it's 50% of the time you're going to succeed. So you roll a 6, 4, 6, 5, or 4, you succeed. 3, 2, 1, you fail. Right? Are you with me so far? Okay, pretty easy. However, there's a catch. And so I made this little cheat sheet here so you can see it. Here's a yes and, no and but. And this black is good, red is bad. So if you roll a 6, you succeeded, and something good happened beyond what you were trying to do. You roll a 5, it's just a simple success. You got what you wanted. You roll a 4, you succeeded, however, but something bad also happened. You roll a 3, no, you didn't succeed, but a little something good happened. You roll a 2, no, you just plain old didn't succeed. And if you're unfortunate enough to roll a 1, no, you didn't succeed, and something really bad also happened in excess of just you not succeeding. And so there's you can use an example. I think I wrote down a couple notes here someplace about what that might look like. Ah, here it is. I was wondering where I might have written that down. Now let's go like this idea. Let's say your character is running away from somebody else, and what they have to do at this point, what their task they're going to do with this D6 die is I'm going to try to run up this gate. Say there's this 20-foot gate, and the other person's behind them by some distance, and they really need to get out of there. So they decide, okay, I'm going to try to get up this gate and get over it, so I can, in fact, put some more distance between myself and this other person, because otherwise I'm just stuck there, and maybe they're going to kill me. All right, so let's just say you roll a 5, you succeed, you get up the gate. Okay, say you roll a 2, well, you fail, you don't get up the gate. However, say we're going to use this yes and mechanic, right? So say you roll a 6, and you get up the gate, but not only that, something really fortunate happens, say in our narration, that you manage to damage something on the gate. You make it harder for the next guy to get up, the guy that's chasing you. However you manage to damage that as you're doing this. So that's great. This is an additional success you weren't even looking for. However, let's say if you roll a 4, you got up the gate, but maybe our narration is that you dropped something you really wanted. Maybe you got hurt a little bit as you're going up the gate. This misfortune. Let's go back to this idea. Let's kind of hold in your head that it might be open to negotiation. Okay? Because that's important in this question I have. Now let's say you roll a 3. Okay, you failed, but say you got up halfway. So maybe you have this chance to, even if the guy gets there, the other person is trying to kill you, gets there, maybe you have a chance for another try, maybe at a penalty, but you might have a chance. Maybe you're just up higher, so maybe you got the drop, you got the high ground a little bit. But say you roll a 1. Okay, you roll a 2, you just don't get up the gate. But say you roll a 1 and you fall and you get hurt. So now you're really screwed at that point. That's your other misfortune that happens. So here's the question. Player narrates successes in our default idea. The game master narrates failures. Who narrates the ands and the buts? Who does that? Now here's where the question gets kind of interesting at this point. Now, talking to Runeslinger a little bit this morning, just kind of chuckling about it. He talked about the ideal thing is the player narrates actions and intentions as needed. The game master does the same, and it becomes this harmonious dialogue. And I've certainly had, I think I might have misspoke a little bit. I've certainly had dialogues in terms of narration back and forth as a player and game master on both sides of the screen, as it were. But oftentimes, for me, it was more of a bit of a negotiation, and it wasn't in an adversarial method. However, let's take this example right here. We're going up this gate, and say I'm the player, and I narrate my success that I'm getting up the gate, right? But it's a yes, but I rolled a 4. So now the game master, let's decide the game master decides to narrate the but, and he goes, okay, but you drop this really important thing that you had. And now as a player, I'm like, oh man, really? That sucks. Can I drop my money pouch instead, or can't I just get a little bit hurt? So there's a little bit of a negotiation going on. Okay, does it work like that for you, or does it work some other way? If you're the player and you get up all the way, you roll a 6, does the player get to narrate what the extra great thing is, or does the game master at that point? Whose job is it to narrate the buts and the ands? And likewise, in something like the Ubiquity system or like a dozen other systems where there's just that degree of success or failure, as it gets, the success gets better and better, does the player have the freedom to keep on narrating that way? Does the game master have to still can step in with editorial control? But at what point is that extra success, does that jump into the purview of the game master to decide what that is? And likewise, as the failure gets worse and worse, at what point does the player kind of say, hey, wait a minute, can we talk about this? Can there be a negotiation? It's a gray area. It's a gray area in terms of degree of success or failure, right? Is it a gray area in terms of who narrates what? Or do we have this dialogue? What do you think? What has your experience been? Tell me about it.